You ever notice how in America the word loyalty gets tossed around like it's a discount coupon? Everybody swears they're loyal until they aren't. And me, I was the sucker who believed it. I thought my wife was the gold standard of fidelity, the kind of woman who would bake pies for church raffles and glare at any man who even thought about flirting with her. She played that role so well, I could have sworn she deserved an Oscar. But little did I know, behind the sweet smile and the casserole dishes, I was sleeping next to the ultimate double agent, my own cheating wife. Now, here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. It wasn't just some random stranger at a bar or her yoga instructor. It was my brother, my flesh and blood, my partner in childhood crimes. The guy I once defended in middle school when he got caught drawing mustaches on the teacher's photos. And apparently the guy who decided my marriage vows were more like a help-yourself buffet. But before we even get to the betrayal, let me tell you how perfectly staged this whole conspiracy was. My brother and my wife had a rhythm, a secret code. At every family cookout, they'd hover near the grill like spies exchanging nuclear launch codes. "Pass the ketchup," she'd say, eyes locked on his. "Got any napkins?" he'd reply with that sly grin. I thought it was innocent. Who suspects infidelity in a ketchup exchange? But looking back now, it was their love language, hidden in plain sight. The truth hit me like one of those late-night History Channel conspiracy specials. I couldn't sleep. I started putting pieces together like I was some discount detective in a trench coat. Her sudden obsession with perfume. His sudden obsession with dropping by. The way they laughed a little too long at each other's jokes, even the unfunny ones. My brother isn't even that funny. He once tried stand-up comedy at an open mic, and half the crowd left before he finished. But suddenly, every lame joke he cracked had my wife cackling like she was front row at a Kevin Hart show. And then there were the family photos. At first, I didn't notice. But one night, wine glass in hand, I scrolled through albums. There she was, standing next to him in every shot, leaning just slightly toward him instead of me. My own brother was practically photoshopped into my marriage. So, of course, the paranoid part of me started inventing theories. Maybe it wasn't just infidelity. Maybe this was a long game of revenge, a toxic love triangle orchestrated by fate. Maybe my wife was a CIA operative sent to test whether blood is truly thicker than water. Maybe my brother was the devil in disguise, offering her the kind of temptation Eve couldn't resist. Or maybe, and this is the theory that kept me awake, it was all about power. Some families fight over inheritances, some over politics. Mine? We went to war over who got to call my cheating wife their soulmate. I know it sounds ridiculous, but betrayal does that to you. It makes you see shadows where there's light. It makes you laugh when you should cry. And it forces you to ask, what if the sitcom laugh track of my life was actually just the sound of people mocking me? And the worst part? I wasn't just losing a wife. I was losing a family. My parents adored her. My mom once told me, "You're lucky, son. She's the glue that holds this family together." Glue? More like the acid that burned through it. My dad liked my brother better than me anyway, so when the truth came out, he just sighed like, "Well, son, you should have seen it coming." Betrayal stacked on betrayal, and I hadn't even reached the grand finale yet. So yeah, part one of this American nightmare ends with me staring at the woman I thought I knew, realizing she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a master illusionist. And my brother. He was the willing accomplice. Together they rewrote the script of my life, and I hadn't even finished reading Act 1. They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back, but when it's your own brother, it feels more like a chainsaw, loud, messy, impossible to ignore. And the worst part? Everybody else heard the chainsaw before I did. Neighbors gave me those sympathetic smiles, the kind you give a guy walking around with toilet paper stuck to his shoe. I was the last to know, the last. The clueless husband, the sitcom character America laughs at every Thursday night. Except this wasn't sitcom funny. This was the kind of betrayal that turned my whole family into a dark parody of itself. The actual discovery wasn't cinematic. No dramatic lightning bolts. No slow-motion gasp. It was plain, painfully American, suburban ordinary. I came home early from work one Tuesday, a bag of takeout in my hand, thinking I'd surprise my loyal wife with pad thai. What I found instead was the soundtrack of betrayal. My brother's ridiculous laugh echoing upstairs, followed by the unmistakable rhythm of infidelity. For a moment I convinced myself they were watching a comedy special, maybe a Kevin Hart Netflix special, maybe even Friends reruns. But deep down I knew that wasn't canned laughter. That was real. So there I was, frozen at the bottom of the stairs, a paper bag of pad thai getting cold in my hands, realizing that my life was just a conspiracy theory come true. My cheating wife and my own brother were upstairs in my bedroom, our bedroom, the same one where we planned our future, painted the walls, made promises under the covers, and he was in there, desecrating it like some twisted revenge plot written by Shakespeare if Shakespeare had ever watched daytime talk shows. When I stormed in, it wasn't graceful. I didn't deliver some poetic monologue about betrayal. No, I screamed like an audience member on Jerry Springer. They scrambled like teenagers caught sneaking beer. My brother had the nerve to smirk at me, like I was the idiot for walking in on their toxic love rehearsal. My wife, the glue of the family, pulled the sheet around her and hissed, "It's not what it looks like." Lady, it was exactly what it looked like. Infidelity doesn't need subtitles. The confrontation turned into theater. Her excuses were so laughable they could have won a comedy award. I was lonely. You work too much. We just connected. Connected? He's my brother, not a Wi-Fi network. And him? He strutted around with the arrogance of a man who thought betrayal was a sport, and he'd just scored the winning touchdown. And then came the family fallout. Word spread faster than a wildfire in California. My mother cornered me at Sunday dinner, whispering like it was a state secret, "You know, honey, sometimes love just happens." Excuse me? Love just happens? Like tripping over a garden hose? No, this wasn't love. This was sabotage. A demolition of the family tree from the inside. My father, ever the philosopher of nonsense, shook his head and muttered, "Well, at least she stayed in the family." "That's right, Dad. Let's give them a medal for keeping the betrayal in-house." As if my Thanksgiving turkey would taste better knowing my cheating wife was carving it up with my brother at her side. The whole town got in on the parody. At the diner, whispers followed me. There goes the guy whose wife ran off with his brother. Even the waitress gave me free coffee, like pity was part of the menu. My coworkers tried to cheer me up with gallows humor. One of them left a sticky note on my desk that said, "Revenge is a dish best served at the next family reunion." But here's where the conspiracy twist comes in. I started seeing patterns. Had this been planned from the beginning? Was my wife always drawn to him, and our marriage just a cover? Maybe my brother had envied me since childhood, stealing my toys, my spotlight, and finally my family. Maybe this was a generational curse, a betrayal written in the DNA of American family drama. My grandmother once had an affair with her sister's husband. Maybe we were doomed to repeat history like a rerun nobody wanted to watch. As absurd as it sounds, the theory gave me comfort. If it was destiny, then maybe it wasn't all my fault. But destiny or not, the fallout was very real. My kids stopped talking at the dinner table. My daughter drew pictures of broken houses at school. My son asked me if Uncle Mike was going to be his new dad. How do you answer that without screaming into the void? So I plotted revenge. Not the Hollywood kind with car chases and explosions, though I fantasized about that too. No, my revenge would be subtle, psychological. I'd outlast them. I'd survive. let their toxic love implode while I rebuilt my dignity piece by piece. Because betrayal, as brutal as it feels, eventually flips into fuel. And if survival is the ultimate revenge, then maybe I was already winning. But I couldn't shake the comedy of it all. Me, the American husband who thought he had the perfect family, brought down not by war, not by financial ruin, but by a cheating wife and a brother with the loyalty of a used car salesman. It was Shakespeare meets Jerry Springer, with a laugh track only I could hear. And that, dear reader, was just the beginning. The messy cloud of betrayal dust that never really settles, just lingers in the air like cigarette smoke at a cheap Vegas casino. Once the truth came out, my family stopped being a family and turned into a circus. Picture Thanksgiving dinner with half the table whispering prayers and the other half whispering insults. My cheating wife and my brother sat there like Bonnie and Clyde, except without the charm, and the rest of us were the unwilling audience. The kids, poor kids, were trapped in the middle of this American parody. My daughter started slamming doors and blasting Taylor Swift songs on repeat, like every lyric was written about her toxic, love-ridden parents. My son started calling my brother Uncle Dad just to get a rise out of me, and it worked every single time. Nothing like hearing your 7-year-old casually rename the man who betrayed you as though it's some sitcom punchline. My cheating wife, took on the role of tragic heroine, sighing dramatically whenever anyone confronted her. You don't understand. It wasn't just cheating, it was love. Toxic love, sure. The kind of love that burns down houses and leaves kids in therapy for the next 20 years. She even posted cryptic Facebook updates like a teenager. Sometimes the heart just knows. Knows what? That betrayal is sexier when it involves family. She collected sympathy likes like she was building a brand. My brother wasn't any better. He strutted around like betrayal was a career move. He'd show up to family events with that smug grin, holding her hand, daring someone to challenge him. He treated the collapse of our family like a victory lap, and everyone else was supposed to clap along. The man bought a new truck the week after the affair came out. A truck! Nothing screams toxic masculinity victory parade like rolling up in a brand new Dodge Ram while dating your brother's ex-wife. And the relatives. Oh, the relatives. They lined up to take sides like it was an election year. Aunt Carol called me crying, swearing she'd never speak to my brother again. 2 days later, I saw her liking his Instagram photo of him and my cheating wife at Olive Garden. Grandma said the whole thing reminded her of her soap operas, and honestly, she was rooting for the cheaters. At least it's exciting, she said, shoveling mashed potatoes onto her plate. Betrayal had turned my family tree into a reality show nobody asked for, and I was the unwilling star. Then came the rumors. Small-town America runs on gossip, and our scandal was the equivalent of a national emergency. At the diner, people whispered behind menus. At church, the pastor gave a sermon about family loyalty that might as well have been subtitled, "This one's for you, buddy." Even the guy at the gas station gave me a discount, patting me on the back like I was some veteran of infidelity wars. My life wasn't private anymore. It was public entertainment. And that's when I started slipping into conspiracy mode again. What if this wasn't just a betrayal? What if it was a plot? My brother had always resented me. The better grades, the steadier job, the house in the suburbs. Maybe he saw my family as a trophy to steal, like some twisted competition. Maybe my wife was his inside agent all along, sent to dismantle my life from the inside. Think about it. Who better to destroy you than the one person you swore to trust? She was the Trojan horse of American infidelity. And me? I was the idiot who opened the gates. Meanwhile, my kids were casualties of this toxic war. The school called me in after my son drew a picture of our family where I was scribbled out. My daughter started journaling about toxic love like she was auditioning for a future tell-all memoir. And me? I sat at the dining room table at night, staring at empty chairs, wondering how betrayal could echo louder than silence. I tried to rebuild some normalcy. I went to therapy, sat in that leather chair while a woman with oversized glasses asked me to describe the betrayal in one word. Just one word? Lady, this wasn't a word. It was a whole novel. Revenge, betrayal, family, infidelity, collapse. It was a dictionary of destruction. But even therapy couldn't erase the comedy of it all. One night, drunk on cheap whiskey, I caught myself laughing. Not a happy laugh, but a bitter American laugh track kind of laugh. The irony was unbearable. I had spent years building a family, only to watch it collapse in the most cliché way possible, a cheating wife and a brother who couldn't keep his hands to himself. It wasn't original, it was textbook toxic love. And that's when I realized something terrifying. The collapse wasn't the end. It was just the setup for whatever twisted finale life had in store. Because in every conspiracy, in every dark comedy, the third act isn't the resolution, it's the cliffhanger. And I was standing right on the edge. You'd think the story ends with divorce papers and a couple of awkward family barbecues where everyone avoids eye contact, but no. Real American betrayal doesn't end quietly. It drags itself out like a bad Netflix series that refuses to be canceled. My cheating wife and my brother thought they'd written themselves a happy ever after script. What they actually did was create the kind of spin-off nobody asked for. Toxic Love, the family betrayal saga. Let me paint you the picture. They moved in together within a month, my house, their new stage. They didn't even bother repainting the walls. Imagine me driving past my old place, the house where I built memories, and seeing my brother on the porch barbecuing with my kids' bikes still in the yard. That's not just betrayal. That's performance art. My cheating wife even started gardening in the front, waving at neighbors like she hadn't just detonated our family. She wore sunglasses and sundresses like some parody of a suburban stepmom, except her reality show was built on infidelity. But here's the thing about toxic love. It rots from the inside out. Within months, cracks started showing. At first, they were subtle. Her Facebook posts turned from "sometimes the heart just knows" to vague memes about trust issues. His Instagram photos went from smiling selfies to blurry shots of beer bottles. The same people who once whispered about me now whispered about them. Karma wasn't just coming. It was already on the front porch, ringing the bell. And me? I plotted revenge. Not the Hollywood kind with explosions, but the American kind. Paperwork, lawyers, custody battles. I weaponized normalcy. If their love was fire, mine was ice, cold, and deliberate. I documented every missed pickup, every toxic argument that leaked back to me through the grapevine. I wanted the courts to see what I already knew. Betrayal makes terrible parents. And while they were busy performing their love affair for the world, I was building my case quietly, like a man digging tunnels under a prison yard. Meanwhile, family gatherings turned into full-on circus performances. My mom tried to play peacemaker, inviting everyone to Christmas dinner, like sitting at the same table could erase betrayal. Picture me carving turkey while my brother carves ham, and my cheating wife sits there sipping wine, pretending we're one big, happy family. My son asked if we could open presents early so Uncle Dad can leave sooner. My daughter played Christmas music so loud it drowned out the sound of forced laughter. Honestly, it would have been funnier if it wasn't my life. The final collapse came faster than anyone expected. Toxic love isn't sustainable. It burns too bright and leaves nothing but ashes. By spring, the fight started. Neighbors told me they heard screaming matches at night. He accused her of betrayal, the irony, and she accused him of being controlling. Police got called once. Suddenly, the couple who thought they'd destroyed me was destroying each other. It was like watching a bad parody of Romeo and Juliet, except instead of tragic poetry, it was passive-aggressive Facebook posts and screaming matches in the driveway. And in that collapse, I found my revenge. Not through action, but through patience. I didn't need to lift a finger. Betrayal has a way of boomeranging back to its source. My cheating wife, once the queen of sympathy likes, became the villain in her own circle. My brother, once the smug conqueror, turned into a bitter man who realized he'd traded a sibling bond for a ticking time bomb. Their toxic love imploded, and I got the front row seat. But don't mistake this for a happy ending. Families don't collapse and then bounce back like sitcom sets. The damage lingers. My kids will carry scars deeper than mine. Holidays will always feel fractured. Neighbors will always remember. I'll always be the guy whose brother stole his wife. That's the permanent tattoo betrayal leaves behind. And yet in the rubble, there's survival. I learned to cook dinner for one. I learned to laugh again, not the bitter laugh, but real laughter at things unrelated to betrayal. I even started dating cautiously, though every time I meet someone new, the word cheating hovers in the back of my mind like a ghost. Therapy became less about describing betrayal in one word and more about rediscovering my own. If there's any moral here, it's this. Revenge doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it's just walking away, surviving, and letting betrayal eat itself alive. And survival, in its quiet, stubborn way, is the loudest revenge of all. So here I stand, an American husband who thought he had loyalty, only to be schooled in betrayal by his cheating wife and his own brother. The family collapsed, the house turned into a stage, and the story spiraled into parody. But in the end, their toxic love consumed them, while I, against all odds, learned to keep standing. Because here's the final punchline. I thought she was loyal. I thought he was my brother. But in America, even family can become the enemy, and betrayal can be the plot twist you never saw coming.